I'm Anne Marie Harvey. On behalf of the Incarceration Free Library of the Waverly Branch, I want to welcome you this afternoon, this evening, for a wonderful discussion to be had. Now, I've met both Dr. Clay and Miss Betty and Terrence before, and I think you guys are in for a treat. I know the title gets some people like, ooh, what are you talking about? You know, I don't want to talk about the toilet. It's much more than that, and I hope that those of you who are here get a lot from the discussion. I'm sure that they're going to invite you to participate, and again, welcome to the Waverly Branch Library.
Good afternoon, everyone. And
Good afternoon.
I appreciate you all coming out on this rainy day. I'm sure you could have been doing a whole lot of other things. I first want to start off with sharing the importance of family. If we have nothing else, we have to have family. And family doesn't always mean that they were born into your life or born into another family member. And I found this out, not necessarily the hard way, but I found it out when I knew that I had to support my son through what was going to be the roughest time of his life and my life. Though he brought these things on himself, I still knew that he was my son and I loved him before I even knew him, and that I was going to have to support him through this. And one of the reasons that I knew this is because I raised him. If I had to do it again, which prayerfully I will never have to do, I would do it again because I felt he was worth fighting for. And because I fought so hard, beside me you see the possibilities of what you can still do with your life with a felony, with a couple felonies. I shared this story as the way the story was birthed was I had to figure out what to do with my energy and my brain, and understanding what this 10 years was going to look like without him. It was just him and I. And so I just started writing stuff. Just writing, and all of a sudden I had this whole envelope of stuff. So I said to him, I said, Terrence, I think we can write a book. Let's write a book. Let's share what we're going through. Because now it looks like we're doing okay, that you're going to be okay. Let's start to share this stuff. He said,
No, I didn't want to write my personal business down. I didn't want to go back into revisiting what I had done.
And so I said to him, boy, please. All somebody needs is your name. They don't need your birthday no more. They don't need where you live. All they need is the correct spelling of your name, and everything that you've ever done that made it to a docket is there. So let's revisit this. So it took a minute for him to decide to be a part of it. I was still writing. What happened was he was on lockup, and I went to visit him, and I said, how in the hell can you be on lockup when you locked up? I don't get that. I don't understand that. But what I know is I'm not doing this. This I'm not going to do. We had a village. I was the gang leader. I'm not doing it. Nobody's doing it. And so I think that kind of resonated because he knew that even though I had been soft in some areas, I was gangster in some other areas. And so that wasn't going to work for me. Because that's the worst visit ever, looking through that nasty, dirty, and picking up that phone that looked like it's infested with I don't know what. I wasn't doing it. And I think that was the last time he was on lockup, and he said while he was there, he started writing. And so I'm going to back up and share with you some of the things that led up to it, and then I'm going to let him share with you what his experience was and where he finally got himself together and realized that his life was worth something. You know, they say Black Lives Matter. I believe all lives matter, but he realized that his life meant something and he was worth something, and he was much better than what he was showing us at that moment and that point of his life. So in and out of trouble from the age of 13, little trouble. Kept building up. It's like somebody on drugs. They start off doing a little marijuana, and the next thing you know, they're a full-blown addict. So it kept escalating, and I kept catching them. Every time they called, I caught them. I wrote a check. And when it finally got to when he realized I couldn't catch him no more and my checkbook wasn't that fat, we realized that this was going to be the beginning of something. And so I'm going to let Tern share a little bit of where he first found himself making some bad decisions that led up to a very bad decision that took him away, that took some years out of his life that he knew he couldn't go back and get. So, Tern.
I guess early on, man, I lost my dad, my stepfather, and grandfather like almost in the same year. From that point on, things were still pretty good in my life, but I started, kind of like acting up in school and things was taking a shift. I had a good support person. Actually, she right here now. She was with me through, this is my cousin, so my mom, she stayed with us, so she was around. I ended up getting with a wrong group of guys, and I guess that was about 15, and I ended up being with them guys for the next 15 years. So that I think that me losing a lot of men in my life, I decided to go to the streets and try to get a little comfort there. I had a good home, but it wasn't no men. Just not to say it wasn't discipline there, but it wasn't no men around to like really enforce some things that I probably would have looked at differently coming from a man. So I started getting in trouble, getting locked up, small things where she could come and get me, and then finally it was a time that she couldn't come get me. So I came right home, jumped right back into doing what I was doing, running around with the same guys. School wasn't, I wasn't thinking too much about school no more. And finally I just quit school. I had a good family. Not to say that they didn't have good families, but I ain't had to be in the street, running around, selling drugs, hustling, using drugs. That wasn't at home. So finally, years and years went by. And like I said, I was in and out of jail, and finally the big one came, a 20-year sentence. And then it was no help from nobody at that point. Once I got it, my mother couldn't help, my cousin, nobody. I had to deal with it myself. So the first couple years of that sentence, I still, people think because you go away that you're going to change instantly. I still ran around for probably about 3 years. So, my mom talked about writing a book, and, at that point, I was saying I wasn't really interested. I didn't want to put my business out there, but I wasn't ready anyway, because I still was doing the same stuff. Like she said, going back and forth on lockup, that happened a few times, but what did it was I went on lockup for about a year, and being in there 23 hours a day, I started thinking probably about like maybe 4 months into being in there, I was like, man, I ain't had nothing else to do. So I said, let me start writing. I started writing some stuff down and kind of digging back into my past and I kept trying to just figure out, man, where you go wrong at, what's going on, because I knew I came from a good family. So I started writing and figuring out, because I never even really knew that losing the men was an issue really back then. I didn't know. So once I started writing and realizing, okay, my father, he was around, but he wasn't around. My stepfather, he was there 100%. Then he passed. Then my grandfather passed, and I was like, man, that's right when you started writing this stuff down. Really showed me where I went wrong. Stuff. I could see the paths in my life then. And at that point, I was, like I said, I was like 3 years into my sentence, 3, maybe 4. And I decided, I was like, man, you got 20 years, you can't go home the same way you came in. So things started really like kicking in at that point. And I said, man, you got to start trying to change. But the hardest part was just changing the people around me, because I left the streets with those guys, and I ended up hanging with the same type of guys inside. So once I came off lockup that particular time, now I had guys in there that was good men and, you know, educated and good men to be around, that was going, you know, show you some things and you know, speak to you, and, you know, guys that wasn't never going home. So they really wanted to see guys like me do well. So I started surrounding myself with them guys. You know, day by day, what happened, they just, the bad seeds just kind of start falling off. And from that point on, man, I said, you know what? I'm gonna try my best to stay on this path, and I didn't get off, you know. So it kind of worked out. I started, you know, involving myself in different programs. I got involved in this program called Youth Challenge. In the particular jail that I was in, a lot of young guys came in with 30, 40, you know, 50 years, and they was probably 16 and 17 years old. And you know, I got involved in that because I saw me. You know, you had a bunch of young guys, you know, and at this time I'm mid-30s, but you know, I saw myself. You know, you had some that really came from bad, broken homes. Then you had some came from good homes, but wanted to portray a broken home. So you know, it was good for me to let them guys know, you know, because at this point, I mean, I'm well respected in there. So when I started telling them, man, I came from a good home. You know, it wasn't that I had to sell no drugs and keep my lights on or do this. It was because I wanted to do it. You know, I just wanted to, you know, once I decided to get in the streets, I wanted to kind of take care of myself. You know, but after years went by, you know, I just say my life started changing, and I said, man, I think you can do. I'm telling myself, I know you can do better now. You know, stayed, you know, got away from the drugs, the hustling, and at some point in my life, man, I didn't think that was like even possible. I thought that was gonna be a way of life forever. You know, so through the sentence, you know, I saw me changing, you know, and the people around me saw a change. So that really, like, you know, helped me out and changed my life. So the book really, you know, was 100% good for me because I learned some stuff about myself that I didn't know. So, you know, a lot of people always tell you when you write, I used to hear it a lot, you know, if you write, you know, you can figure out some things, but that did it. That kind of really put things in perspective. And you know, toward the end of the sentence, I was trying to put a plan together, coming home, and I was like, I being gone for 10 years, I didn't know what route I was going to go. But the main thing I said when I came home, that I was going to humble myself, whether I had to work at McDonald's, whether I had to, you know, I ended up washing cars when I got home. So it didn't matter. I just said I want to stay home. You know, and you know, guys around me, they were doing well. You know, cars, house, everything. Because at this time, I'm 40 years old. So the guys I left, you know, some of them successful, some of them dead, some of them locked up. You know, so, you know, I just humbled myself. You know, they made a good place for me when I got home. Let me backtrack. I through this whole ordeal, I was married. I ended up losing my wife probably maybe 5 years into the sentence. That was one of the biggest crushes right there. So that really said, okay, now you really don't. You have to take care of yourself when you get home. Ain't no leaning nowhere. You got to figure this thing out. There's no help no more. You got to do this on your own. You know, that's what I decided to do, man. Once I got home, it was just really my focus. My mother, she had a long list of programs. Once I got home, and I said I didn't want to get involved in nothing. I wanted to do this thing on my own. I wanted to, you know, you didn't straddle the whole time. I need to take care of this as a man. I'm 40 years old. I need to do this on my own. And she stepped back, and that's what I did. I started doing more odd jobs, and I figured it out. You know, I ended up, you know, getting a job at this company, and I'm with now. I've been there 5 years. Ended up getting my CDLs. remarried my wife. Got a
Four-year-old baby.
4-year-old daughter. I got a 4-year-old daughter, a 30-year-old daughter, and 3 grandkids. And you know, now, and right now, I know I'm the head of the household, and you know, I know that they lean on me to, you know, take care of things. At one point, I just thought about, I always thought about me, and didn't think me getting in trouble. I was taking everybody with me through this thing. So now, you know, I don't say and say I never had bad thoughts, but I realize now that I'm responsible for a lot of people. So
One of the other reasons that this book I felt was so important is that to share with people that always want to go back to a source of a young person getting in trouble. They want to say something happened, and I'm traveling around with it now. I'm working with schools, I'm working with Department of Juvenile Services, I'm working with mothers to teach them how to speak the language to get the services that they need for their young people. I'm teaching them how to dress when they're representing their young people. And I'm teaching providers what their role is and helping people like me. And I leave them with this whenever I'm doing a conference or something. I say, when a mother comes in and sits in front of you, I want you to close your eyes and see me on the back of your eyelid, because that's who it is. It's a mother just simply wanting some help for their child. And they don't always provide those services. And so as I'm doing this, it's opening up eyes of social workers and caseworkers and people who can be effective. My son had a pretty decent PO who I had permission to talk to if he needed something done or whatever, to show them the involvement that the family really wants the connection. And so when I wrote this book, I said I want to pick, and I asked him, I want to pick about 10 or 12 people that you feel like it really affected their life, their home, how they woke up every day. And so we selected those people, one being his wife. His daughter's in there twice. She was angry on the first one because she was much younger when he went away. She was terribly angry with him. But the second one, she became proud. He tells you about this program, Youth Challenge. Not only was he a part of it, he became one of the facilitators of it. Being trained by 2 powerful men here in Baltimore, being Dr. Lamar Shields and David Miller. Went to Hagerstown to teach him how to facilitate. And he has a commendation that says he was 1% of the population that was qualified to present those workshops. One, because he was raised. And people have to understand that just because a child gets in trouble don't mean that they weren't raised, that they don't have some standards and some morals. They're just choosing to make some bad decisions. And so when we were putting this together, I was at a conference in Savannah. And there was this girl who had been at the same conference with me for about 5 years. And she had a whole lot of books on her table with her name on it. And I said to her, you wrote all these books? And she said, yeah. She said, not only did I write them, I have a publishing company. I said, you know, I think I got a book. She said, everybody got a book. But is it a good book? Is somebody gonna read it? And I was like, well, I don't know, but I think it's good. So she said, well, okay, send it to me. So I sent her this envelope. And it was like you tore a letter up and put it in the trash can, and you laid it all out on the floor and tried to put it back together. Well, that's what she did with it. And 2 weeks later, she called me back. She said, not only do you have a book, you have a great book, and it's never been written before. Let's do it. And 8 months later, the book became a book. And I'm so excited to say the places that these books are being used, because it's layman's terms. It's a book where a mother would sit down and read and say, I see my son in this, but now I see how I can maybe not do all these steps that this lady in this book did. It's a book that has strategies for providers just to tell what their role is, for mothers to say what their role is, for young boys to say what they shouldn't do or who they shouldn't be with. There's a section that he collected from probably about 35, 40 inmates who were transparent enough not only to say who they are, but what their crime was and how much time they got and what facility they're in. These are the consequences of your actions of these crimes. And so I just feel like all of our children are worth saving. Well, it's not always the person in the house that can save you. I like David Miller saying, he was like, Superman ain't coming to save y'all. I just feel like as people around young people, if you see something, if you know something, if you know a service, if a provider or somebody that can help a mother, because all we really want is help, but oftentimes people don't know how to get help. And the help is not just laid out there for you. You gotta search, you gotta look. I knocked down doors, I kicked, I called people, and I would say, they would say, oh, well, that's not what we do, and I was just holding on to the phone. And the lady's like, ma'am, you still there? I was like, oh yeah, because I was thinking that you were trying to find the correct person for me. Where most mothers would have just hung up, and that would have been it. I'm telling providers that if you're going to provide a service, make sure you made the call beforehand, before you give it to that already frustrated mother. And make sure that that person that's going to answer the phone is going to be the person that can help that mother. But it's so many things that we can do. And it's really, if we just talk. My son said I talk to everybody. And I do. And I told him some of the best things that came through his life was because I talked to somebody and they told me. I don't tell anybody what not to do with their child. You figure it out. And so if I was to say, if I had to redo this, would I have got him the first time and maybe the second time and then been done with it and let him see if there was a lesson learned? I don't know. So I don't share that with mothers. You use your own understanding of what you want it to look like. I visit that a lot of times, and I go back and I try to count up some monies, and I feel like my return on all of that couldn't have been better than what he came out to be. And I say that to say to people who are going through or know somebody to go through, understand that if you've instilled some morals, some standards, and some good practices in life, if you've taught them some things as they were growing up as little people, it's still there. But you gotta let them run their course. And so I share with anybody that knows or is going through this, just to understand that the only thing that's gonna get your loved one back is the love of you and the families and the people that are close to you. And I say that to say, if you say he can call, answer the phone. If you say you're gonna visit, visit. Because when you're there, you're already in a certain type of feelings. And so disappointment only multiplies what's going on in your life inside of that. So I found out as I'm doing this that there's not a family that I've come across. Terrence and I did Center Family Services in Camden back in June. It was 450 providers. And when I asked the question, how many of you all have or have had a loved one incarcerated, everybody in the building stood up. But it gave them a new outlet, because then they were able to conversate, because they knew that their boss had somebody that was incarcerated, that the secretary had somebody that was incarcerated. It opened another window for them to have an open conversation about this thing called incarceration, because it wasn't just in my house. When my son went to jail, he was everywhere but in jail for the first year, because I did not know how to tell people. I worked for Holiday Inn, had been with them for 20-some years. I was a general manager. I hobnobbed with the big dudes. They knew him from playing Little League baseball. I can't sit down and say Terrence just went to jail for 20 years. They had no idea. And so because of that, we don't talk about it. And that was why it was important for me to write the book. We don't talk about it because we don't know if we're in a safe area to talk about it. We don't know if we're talking to somebody who just want to hear the worst sides of it. Mm-hmm. Or if we're talking to somebody that may have some good information to us. So, again, like I said, if you know someone, a mother going through this, a grandmother going through this, just be there for them. The only thing I know that got him through was love. That was it. It didn't have anything to do with commissary. It didn't have anything to do with packages, we stopped doing the packages. We went straight for the love thing. But if you do know someone that's going through, just have an open conversation with them. If you find a spot or opening, take it. Because they really do want a safe place, a person that's not going to judge them for what their child did.
So I started from the bottom and got promotions, and you know, like, you know, and now I'm sitting here and I never had no job and get 3 weeks vacation. You know what I mean? Working way up to, you know. So I mean, I finished my parole, which was 5 years, and you know, for guys coming home, it's tough. They can't see being out that long and not getting in no trouble. You know, so that's a scary thing. Like, it's like you're walking on eggshells for the whole 5 years. But after like the first year, things started coming together, man, I forgot that I was even on it. Whatever I can get, I'm gonna do the best at it, and hoping another door open up. And I mean, that's the best advice I can give them coming home. I can't go buy a new wardrobe. I can't do none of this. But if you need a ride now, or you know, information, you know, even a job, you know, I'm here for you. But so you know, me and my wife, we just bought a house. Been there for like a year. I'm part of society now. You know, I ain't never, you know, I voted for the first time. I got my passport, and, you know, so yeah, and I'm paying my taxes. You know, so, I mean, yeah, I feel a lot better, and I hope when the guys see me, you know, especially the ones that I ran with, you know, when they see me now, you know, it's a lot of times, you know, it's just basically, you know, what's up, Terrence? You know, we speak. You know, I mean, this even the guys that I used to be around, you know, but it took time. Like, you know, my first couple of years, I just disconnected. So, you know, I was saying, and really honestly, I'll be trying to get away. You know, I don't want too much. I don't have too much rap. But now, you know, my life is just on a whole nother path. So I done seen a few, talked to them, tell them I just seen one. We had like a Northeast reunion, and I was telling them, and they was like, "Man, you doing all this work?" And I said, "Yeah." You know, so I just hope that they catch on. You know, because I mean, it took years for me. You know, I ain't get rights. I was 40 years old, so you know. But I feel like we not lost as black men. I mean, my biggest change, I mean, I knew once I got home, man, I didn't want nobody else telling me when to eat, when I can get something to drink, you know, when I can go outside and get some air. I said that was it. Wasn't gonna be no more there. My grandma said years ago, yeah, you keep messing up, you're gonna be mad when you can't go down there and get you a nice cold cup of water. And years later, after she passed, I was like, damn, she said that, you know, and she's right. You know, so, yeah.
Thank you. Any questions? Is there any questions that we can answer for you?
I do have a question.
Yes.
Sir, how did you deal with forgiveness, dealing with your wife, and then remarrying her after? And how did forgiveness impact you in reference to the decision you made, end up getting locked up, and then forgiving your wife?
It wasn't her fault. You know, so like really I couldn't be mad at her because she never put no guns in her hand. She graduated from Maryland, got a degree, went to work at Bank of America. So I mean, it wasn't her fault. But it took a lot of years, you know, for me to really accept that, you know, it wasn't her fault. You know, but once I came home, I was different. My mind was different. I was thinking different. And I wanted her back. And she wanted me back. So I mean, the connection just was there, and we made it work. But I decided, one of the things I decided on my own, when I came home, we had a house that we had just bought before I court the 20 years. And when I came home, I decided I'm not going, even when me and her started connecting again, I was in my mother's basement. And I said, I'm not leaving here until I have a good foundation.
I have 8 sons. 6 of them were my foster children. 2 of them were hooked on heroin for over 20 years. So that was my fight for a very long time, because I was being killed. That's how badly they got on my nerves. But however, through the grace of God, and I always tell people, thank God for salvation, both of them got cleaned up. Both of them know the word better than me. And so what I've learned over the years, or for my years, because I used to work for juvenile services. And so I used to work with runaway kids, throwaway kids, kids who were in detention centers because of abuse, physical, sexual, emotional, what have you. So they used to call my boys Mike boys because they were the worst of the bunch. and so when I started taking them into my house, I like was going, don't do that, don't do that. You can lose everything. But what I found out is if you love them and teach them what you expect from them, they'll change. I worked with, back in the day, I worked with the late Donald Schaefer, who was mayor of Baltimore, and governor. Like you, I was in hospitality. I was the first black assistant general manager at Martin's West. So I worked with everybody, politicians, judges, the whole 9 yards. So I could take my kids around everybody and not have a problem. But one of the things that I found that happen is sometimes as men, we are not given the responsibility or the charge to take care of. My father did not live in my house, but he was a great father. You know? Either him and my mother never married, they still looked after me and my stepbrother because he looked at both of us as his own sons. You know? So that was, my claim into it.
Well, I want to thank you all again for listening to our story.